Economic inequality is a growing issue that is arising globally. What is economic inequality? Economic inequality is the unequal distribution of income and opportunity between different groups in society. It is a concern in almost all countries around the world, and often people are trapped in poverty with little chance to climb up the social ladder. I want to focus on the fact that rising income inequality threatens access to the legal system. Lots of people lack the income necessary to pay for legal interventions against unjust treatment, preventing them from meeting basic needs like protection against financial fraud and abusive relationships. Growing income inequality has made this justice gap worse by reducing public funds available for legal aid in real terms, while also making it more difficult for low-income people to make ends meet. According to a recent survey, more than 70% of low-income American households had been involved in civil legal disputes during the preceding 12 months, and in more than 80% of those cases, they lacked effective legal representation. These disputes often involve issues far more serious than rental housing. They include custody disputes, healthcare coverage, child support, home foreclosures, domestic violence, disability access, veterans benefits, bankruptcy, and divorces. That so many people must confront the legal system without help is obviously troubling. During the 3 decades after World War II, incomes in the United States rose rapidly and about the same rate, a bit less than 3% a year, for people at all income levels. The country had an economically vibrant middle class, America's roads and bridges were well maintained, and impressive new infrastructure was being built. The nation enacted Medicare, Head Start, and the Earned Income Tax Credit, and other features of a more ambitious and comprehensive social safety net. The past 4 decades present a striking contrast. The economy has grown much more slowly than it had earlier, and virtually all income growth had been occurring to those atop the income ladder. The share of total income going to the top 1% of earners, which stood at 8.9% in 1976, had risen to 23.5% by 2007. But during the same period, the average inflation-adjusted hourly wage had declined by more than 7%. Much of the nation's infrastructure had fallen into grave despair, and safety net programs faced growing shortfalls and threats of closure. The median real wage in the United States is actually lower now than it was in the 1980s. The question that comes to mind is that if middle-income families must now spend more than before to achieve basic goals, how do they manage? They are exploiting every available option, saving less, borrowing more, working longer hours, and moving farther from work. Census data reveal clear links between these responses and regional variations in the growth of inequality. One of the 100 largest U.S. counties, those where income inequality grew most rapidly, were also those that experienced the largest increase in 3 important systems of financial distress: divorce rates, long commutes, and bankruptcy filings.
After doing some research, I would like to propose these solutions that can combat economic inequality. For number 1, if the private market fails to provide enough jobs to achieve full employment, the government must become the employer of last resort. Number 2, when growth is below capacity and the job market is slack, apply fiscal and monetary policies aggressively to achieve full employment. Right now, this means not raising interest rates preemptively at the federal level, and investing in public infrastructure. 3, take actions against countries that manage their currencies to subsidize their exports to the U.S. and tax our exports to them. Such actions can include revoking trade privileges, allowing for reciprocal currency interventions, and levying duties on subsidized goods. Implement universal pre-K with subsidies that phase out income rise. Raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour by 2020, and raise the overtime salary threshold beneath which all workers get overtime pay from $4.55 a week to $9.70 a week, and index to inflation. 6, level the playing field for union elections to bolster collective bargaining while avoiding at the state level anti-union so-called right-to-work laws. For number 7, in order to generate needed revenue and boost tax fairness, reduce the rate at which high-income taxpayers can take deductions, impose a small tax of financial market transactions, increase IRS funding to close the tax gap. So these are my solutions. However, Progress toward a solution will require not only moral outrage, but also a clear understanding of how market forces have contributed to this problem. Being born into poverty does not automatically mean you stay poor. Education at all levels, enhancing skills, and training policies can be used alongside social assistance programs to help people out of poverty and to reduce inequality. Several countries are also now exploring whether a universal basic income could be the answer. The nation can remedy the issue without having to demand painful sacrifices from anyone. Americans should support leaders willing to attack this problem. Thank you for listening.